Jesse, would love to learn about, your backstory, your life, and like how you got
Yeah.
into Web3 and like base.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born and raised in Washington, D.C. My mom was a midwife, so I was actually born at home. Me and all my siblings were born at home. My dad was a lawyer. He represented labor unions, works still with the AFL-CIO, kind of helping represent the folks who are organizing together. And I'd say there's probably two other big defining things that shaped my childhood. One is I went to a Quaker school. I don't know if you know about Quakerism, but Quakerism is a sect of Christianity. The key belief is that there's that of God in everyone. And so there's no religious figure. There's no priest or pastor. And the only kind of religious ceremony is that on a weekly basis, everyone comes into a room and you sit down. You sit in kind of these like benches that are all facing each other, and you just sit in silence for an hour. And then as people are kind of moved to speak, they can stand and share whatever they're kind of moved to share. And that is the religious practice. So I wasn't raised Quaker at home. I wasn't raised particularly religious. My dad was Jewish. My mom was Christian growing up. So I celebrate Christmas and Hanukkah. But I was deeply kind of instilled in the Quaker values from going to Quaker school for my whole life. And so that was one really big influence. And then another really big influence was I played competitive soccer from the time I was 5 years old. So a lot of competitive soccer. I was like a attacking center mid forward. I would say I was always kind of like a B plus player. I was good, but not the best, not really great. That was kind of my defining characteristic until my senior year of high school. And then my senior year of high school, I like had kind of a breakthrough. I was the captain of my team. I led the city in scoring. I led us all the way to a championship. It was pretty like perfect year. And I think that was really the first time I also really became a leader for the first time when I was on that team, kind of leading that team to victory. And that taught me a lot about leadership. And I'd say maybe even the years prior taught me even more about leadership, where it was just frustration of not being good enough, not actually being able to lead, and then having a kind of breakthrough moment. So that was my childhood. I didn't actually learn how to code as a kid. I was always really into technology. I loved watching the Apple keynotes. I, took apart iPhones and repaired the screens and sold them, and was always trying to make money, snow shoveling, gardening, working at a toy store, whatever it was. But I didn't realize that there was ever code underneath that until my senior year of high school, where I was in a math class and they taught us how to do Mathematica, which is like a Wolfram Alpha programming language. And that was the first time I learned how to code. And so I had applied to all kind of engineering schools thinking I wanted to do mechanical engineering or environmental engineering. I got rejected from all of the engineering schools. And I only got into one school. I got into Pomona College, which is a little liberal arts school outside of LA. And I just learned how to code. I decided to go there, and I decided to study computer science. So that brought me to California. I got to Pomona, and I was mostly just excited about building things. And it was a little liberal arts school with a small computer science department and not that many other people who were interested in building things. But I found those people, started shipping little products. I built in my first 6 months at school, I built a rideshare app. This was like 2011, I guess. I built a rideshare app that let people get ride shares to and from the airport. I think it's still used today in Pomona.
Wow.
5C rideshare. And then I built like a version of Tinder. It wasn't a mobile app; it was a web app. But it was like it was called Like Secret. And the whole idea was like you could like people, and if you both liked each other, then you would get matched and go into it. So I was onto something. Wow. Neither of them went anywhere. But that was definitely my first time like shipping and getting real feedback and getting to experience that. And then I started a company with two friends who also went to school with me. The summer after my first year of college, it was called Clef. We built passwordless two-factor authentication. So the idea was kind of you hold up your phone, logs you in, kind of like passkeys today. And we did that for 5 years. I dropped out after my second year of school. That business didn't work. But we learned a lot, had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then when we kind of decided that business was at its end after 5 years, we went through an acqui-hire process, and that was how I ended up at Coinbase. I've been so excited about crypto through working on that business. We'd worked with a ton of crypto companies like Bitfinex and BitMEX. I'd actually tried to convince Coinbase to buy our product. I have like a whole email exchange with Brian Armstrong back in like 2011 and 2012 trying to sell them this thing. And so, yeah, Coinbase felt like a really natural home for me when we kind of decided to do something next. So that's
Amazing.
That's my story. There's a whole other like what happened once I got to Coinbase, but that's definitely the life story up until Coinbase.
That's wow. I didn't realize you had a lot of your building products. You dropped out of school. I had no idea. That's I think I followed a similar path. It's like you were ahead of the game in terms of like you built like basically Tinder and Uber around the same timeline they launched as well, right?
Yeah, it's around the same time. I wasn't quite able to bring them to mass market. It was just the college market, my one college, but definitely on a similar wavelength as other folks who were thinking. Yeah, like back then we used to. I don't know. I mean, you maybe did, but there used to be these. I'm trying to even remember what these called, but you used to super shuttle. That was how we used to always get to the airport. It's like there was no like Uber or Lyft. You used to take these thing called super shuttles, where you would sign up on the website for a super shuttle, and then they would like batch you into like 12 people who'd get the shuttle, and then the shuttle would come and pick you up. And so we were like, how can we coordinate rides, or even how can we coordinate super shuttles so it's not like $150 a pop, instead it's like $20 a pop. So it worked.
Yeah, I think that was a bit in the old age days. I don't think that happens anymore. We got Uber.
Yeah,
but,
I don't think it happens anymore either.
Very cool, very cool. So once you joined, like you basically joined Coinbase as like a software engineer, and then right, or am I?
Yeah, no, I joined Coinbase as a software engineer, just writing code. Built like some features right when I joined on the website, and then it was I joined right at the beginning of 2017, and we went into kind of like hyper scaling mode because the bull market started happening, and they looked at me and they were like, "You've ran a startup before, like why don't you manage a team?" I'd never managed an engineer before. I was like 3 months into my job at Coinbase, but I'm someone who always, if people say, "Do you want to do something?" I always say yes. I always like to take on a new challenge. I love people. And so I took that on, and that kind of began a long journey, about a 5-year journey, scaling all of our consumer products. So by 2021, when I kind of stepped back from that role to start what I thought was what eventually became Base, I was leading all of our consumer products on the engineering side. So Coinbase, Coinbase Pro, Coinbase Wallet, about a team of 200 or so engineers, having a lot of fun, learned a ton, going from just being an engineer to running a 200-person engineering team in a few years. And it was honestly the experience of a lifetime, and set me up, I think, a lot better for what I'm now doing, which is, again, building a team from scratch. New challenge, but a lot of the same principles.
Yeah, I was going to ask, so like Base is kind of like your baby, right? How did you go about incubating this baby and like growing it? So you've had experience basically, I guess, from you were mentioning like taking a startup from 0 to 1 with your passkeys product, and now you're kind of doing the same thing within a company. So like, I'd love to learn like how did you kind of go about building Base, and then what were like the key learnings you took from the passkeys product, and how did you apply it in a building Base?
Yeah, it's a good question. So in 2021, I decided I wanted to do something new and really wanted to start a startup. I thought I was going to leave. My boss at the time convinced me to take a break and stay, but I wanted to be a founder again. I'd known that when I joined Coinbase. I thought I was going to stay at Coinbase for 2 years. That's what I told myself when I joined. I was like, I'll be here for 2 years as a software engineer, and then I'm going to go start something again. Ended up being 5 years. But I, again, had that itch to start something, and I basically like took some time off and decided, hey, maybe I could do that same thing, start something, but do it inside of a bigger organization where I already have all this context, this knowledge, this trust, kind of this platform that I can operate on. And if I could figure out how to like do the startup thing, but do it on this massive platform, that combination could be really powerful. And so that was the insight that I had. It then started what was a pretty painful year and change journey of like trying to figure out what that meant. Like, it's nice to have that idea of like, I should start a startup in a big company because it'll be a cool platform to build something on. And then you kind of run into the reality of the real world, which is like, oh, like there's a ton of different layers of bureaucracy in order to make this happen. There's different risk profile.
Oh,
Like you have to actually figure out how to cut through all of that. And then, so I don't know if, like, I think from my early kind of like first startup experience, the lessons didn't feel like they applied that much. I feel like I almost had more lessons from my 5 years at Coinbase building this team from scratch, where it was like, okay, I started with a 5-person team. I ended up with a 200-person team. A lot of that was like figuring out how do you navigate the organization to like push leverage points to get an outcome that you want. And I feel like a lot of what my journey with Base was, it was a combination of figuring out what we were actually going to build, which I think was much more like that original 0 to 1. It was like iterating, talking to customers. I probably talked to like 200 different developers in our journey towards building Base. But then the other part of it was like figuring out how to keep that seed alive, protected, and kind of like expanding inside of this larger context. And that was really all about like leveraging a lot of the relationships I had, building on the trust that people I think had in me, making sure I was carving out space for our team to actually just go execute, and that we weren't getting kind of weighed down with processes and reviews and all the things that I think really like suck innovation out of things. And so, it was a really cool mix of getting to do those like 0 to 1 skills, and then also getting to flex that like big organizational muscle and bring them together in a way that I think is creating a ton of impact.
yeah. Wow. That's amazing. This is like, yeah, I've never really understood how someone builds a startup within a company in itself. That's very cool. So,
Painfully,
you
it was like it was like chewing glass. I don't know how much it's hard to compare 1 to 1 with like building inside a company but building outside a company, but it definitely wasn't easy. It was
yeah,
very, very, very hard and very, very painful, and is very hard and painful in a lot of ways. And then there's brilliant, beautiful things about it. And so, I think it's just one story, but it's a pretty cool one. I'm pretty proud of it.
yeah. I like the concept though, like, big companies like Coinbase allow like, individuals in their team to like kind of spin out products of their own. I like that concept. I wish more people had done that.
Yeah, well, I think it's a really hard thing to keep like to keep alive inside a business. It's something that Coinbase fights really hard to do. And if you look at basically all of our successful products after the original product that Brian launched, Coinbase, they all came from something like this. Like the USDC product that was like nights and weekends, like a 1 weekend, honestly, by like a small little team that kind of birthed that. Even like the institutional business, that was like a scrappy 4-person startup for a few years that just kind of brought that to life. And then, in more recent history, there's a few things going on right now and a few things that happened in the last couple of years where you really just have like mostly engineers who say, I have this idea, like, let me go do it. And Coinbase has fought pretty hard to create the space for them to go and do it. And I think what that means is you kind of get this virtuous cycle where those people go and do those ideas that creates business value, and it creates examples inside the organization where you can point to it and be like, oh, like Jesse did it, Wilson did it, Brock did it, and that
you can also do it.
You can also do it. Exactly. And so, I think most organizations don't have that. They don't have the examples and they don't have the muscle. And I think Coinbase does. And a lot of it, I think, is credit to Brian. Having a founder as the CEO who gets it and who is so relentlessly focused on innovation and pushing us to kind of like expand the boundaries of what's possible. I think that's really the only context where you can make this happen. Because without that, I think they probably would have given up on me like after the second quarter of me just totally floundering on trying to figure out what to build.
Yeah.
But it took it took 5 quarters to get to the actual thing. We had to go through 4 different iterations of bad products.
But you got
to the
there.
One. We got there, right?
That's what matters.
I don't think most organizations have the muscle to give entrepreneurs inside the business that space to get there.
That's great. I'm glad you got that opportunity.
Me too.
Amazing. Like, and now like getting into like Base and Base's mission. Like I read like Base's mission is basically creating like that open financial system for like the globe, right? How can you get economic freedom? global on-chain economy. So I'm like really bullish on like international like on-chain economics. Okay, so you've seen
Yeah,
FBI, right? Like what Sami is doing with
of course.
FBI, right? Like how can we get Base to expand internationally? I'm curious, like what is Base?
Yeah,
How is Base like driving efforts for international expansion? Like how do we get more energy like FBI into other countries? And one point
yeah.
also like, dude, I mean, Coinbase has been killing it with the media, and media is also a very good way with like, I think fastest way people consume internationally as well.
100%. So first, maybe on the Coinbase media piece, I totally agree. I mean, we have such an incredible brand team at Coinbase that is just spitting out these ideas that turn into beautiful creative, and I think it really is working and telling the story of crypto in a way that I don't think anyone's ever seen it told before. And one thing I know that they're working on is internationalizing all of that content. So making it
Lovely,
so we do it all in different languages, we can share it in different regions
amazing,
so people can actually hear the story that we're telling in their language. And ideally
lovely.
increasingly more in their analogies and their experiences. Because, yeah,
Cultural
maybe
experience,
pizza
yeah,
makes a lot of sense in the United States or in certain regions, but like there's probably another analogy that would make more sense in India or in Kenya, Nairobi. And so I think that's a thing that we're starting to think about.
on-chain
And
chai.
yeah, on-chain chai, exactly, right? So on-chain summer, we'll have a lot of chai. In terms of how Base is thinking about this, I mean, I think the thing that's kind of blown me away is we've always had this intent of bases for everyone. Like that has been a value from literally day one. That was the first value we ever wrote down. It's bases for everyone. And I think we've kind of been reckoning with the reality of being a really small startup where it's like we want to be for everyone, but then you run into this like situation where it's like, okay, but we're also only 10 people. And so like only 10 people you can only be so many places. And we're bigger than 10 people now. We're starting to grow. But we were like, we started as a team of 3, then we were 10 for a long time. And when you're that small a team, you can't be everywhere. Like literally there's
True.
not enough time in the day. And I think the thing that has really blown me away is, the way people have responded to the value of bases for everyone to kind of fill the space that we haven't been able to fill yet. And so I think FBI, Farcasters Builders India, is an incredible example of this. Samya said, he sent me an email. We DM'd back and forth. I've actually never met him, like even face to face on video, but we just DM'd back and forth kind of pretty constantly. And he sent me an email one day. He was like, "Hey Jesse, like we're starting this FBI's thing. We want to run 30 meetups across India over the next month. Like, what do you think?" I'm like, "Yeah, amazing! Like that's the best news ever. Like here's some money, here's some pizza. Like what can we do to help you, support you? We'll amplify everything." We've seen a similar thing emerge in like kind of on the African continent, primarily Nigeria and
Lovely.
Kenya, where you have this guy Yele Bodasami who runs a company called Onboard, and he helped start with a bunch of other people this thing called Builders Connect, which is another huge builder community. It's hundreds of people, and they're running meetups constantly, and they're bringing people together. And I think it's really incredible that like the absence of Base being able to have the actual bandwidth to lean in, but the value of bases for everyone created a context where you actually have these decentralized builders coming in to fill the space and say, we get the value, we want to be a part of Base, and we want to bring this to our local economy. And that's where you get Builders Connect. That's where you get FBI. That's where you get a ton of other of these organizations that are cropping up. And so I think really the next thing that I'm focused on is not like how do we run some monolithic international, expansion that's, corporate. It's like, how do we look at those folks like FBI, like Builders Connect, see what they're doing really well, and then create conditions where those sorts of movements can be replicated across literally every country in the world. And then how do we just pump as much resources as humanly possible into those people? Because
Yeah,
y'all know better than us. Like I don't know what's going to work in India. I don't know what Indian builders needs. I can spend a lot of
yeah,
time,
you're
and I
so
will and
right.
am spending time to figure it out. But like, if I can give you resources, if I can give you a platform, if I can amplify, that to me is like the best way to approach all of this. And I think it's going to lead to a much more decentralized, organic, kind of bottoms up emergent culture that's going to be way more based than anything we could try and do that would be tops down.
100% agree. And I honestly, I see like a very similar path as, that you base is emerging in terms of ecosystem growth. It's very similar to Farcaster, how they
Hmm.
barely did any marketing, right? Like it is all ground up from like people that are actually passionate about it. And I see the same thing happening, at Base. And it's so exciting. The one thing
Yeah,
though, like on Base's website, what would be super cool just to like emphasize that international collective energy is like
I
having
love it.
base written in different languages.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, I mean we kind of
Yeah.
already have some vibe with that where it's like build X on base and we rotate through a bunch of things, but we could even do something like change like build to all of the
Yeah,
different
different
languages.
languages.
I love
Yeah,
that
exactly.
idea. That's a great idea. Yeah, well, we're in the middle of starting to make changes to our website. Our website hasn't been changed in a year. It's like
Oh,
literally it's the same
okay.
website we launched with, and so all of us look at it and we like curl up and die inside a little bit because we're like, oh, this does not represent who we are today. But also, we haven't had the time to update it, but we're just starting to make some changes, and so I love that idea. Well, I'll make it happen.
I
We'll have
mean,
something like that, and I like. Not only should we have that, we should also have like a whole section that's like are you in India? Join FBI. Like, are you in
yes,
Nigeria and
yes.
Kenya? Join Builders Connect. Like that. Again, like lifting up the folks who are actually building on the ground. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, and if you like, there's no one in China, Japan, be like, hey, we don't have anything happening here. Would you be like the first one to do
One hundred
it?
percent.
Dude, I love it.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
my
there's one
God.
starting in Turkey right now as well. And if you're watching this, if you're someone out there watching this, and you're in a country where you haven't seen a like builder community crop up, start one. Start one.
Yes. Oh my,
Build cool
love it,
things.
love it.
We'll give you resources. We have grants for doing meetups. Talk to Samya, talk to Yele, get active on Farcaster and build a based ecosystem in your world. Be a part of the world
Yeah.
because it's gonna have a pretty positive impact, and we'd love to work with you.
Amazing. I'm so excited, Jesse. I know you have a few minutes left, but like in the ending portion, I want to do a real quick rapid fire round with you. Have you heard
Yes, let's
of a
go.
rapid fire
Okay,
round?
I love it. Yeah, I love rapid fire.
Okay, wonderful. I have four questions, okay? So I'm gonna need
Okay,
instant responses. All right.
instant responses.
Ready? Yeah.
Yes.
All right. 50,000 degen or the OG NFT? Which one would you rather have?
Both. Uh, OG NFT. I'm like a
Okay.
culture. I mean, I think both have their unique culture, but I'm like totally blown away with what they're doing over there with the on-chain Gaias, and so I don't know what the value
Yeah.
comparison is of 50,000 DGen, but I have both of them already. But yeah, that would be my gut check.
Okay. Awesome. If not base, what would you be doing with your life? What profession?
I would be doing something with climate change. I think that like we
Okay.
we as a world have to save this planet, and there's a lot of work that we need to do. And I actually think that these things will tie together.
Yeah.
They're starting to tie together. In order to stop climate change, you need to coordinate the entire world to act. And what better
Yeah.
coordination system than a global economy where we can build new systems that let us work together as humans to solve some of these big
Yes.
problems. So I think we'll get there. I need to get the economy off the ground first, and then we'll solve some of the climate stuff on top.
We'll get there. Yeah. Okay. Next, top three favorite projects on base right now.
Can't pick. Impossible.
You can pick. Okay. All
Impossible.
right.
Too many to name.
Too many good ones. Yeah. All right. Last question. If you could go on a 3-month vacation, where would you go?
Ooh, wow. 3-month vacation. Where would I go? I could only go to one place.
Yeah, one place.
One place. I mean, I'd say probably the place that I love the most that I don't get to spend nearly as much time as I would like to is Mexico City.
Ah,
I've like lived there at various points in my life. I've probably been there like 8 or 9 times. Whenever I have a weekend that I like, want to go do something, I'll go down there. It's such a beautiful city. The people are so nice. It's close to the United States, so you can get there in 4 or 5 hours. Incredible food, great like nature and exploring around it. So that's probably where I go.
amazing. Great. That was all my questions for you. Thank you so much,
Amazing. Well, thanks
Jesse.
for having me, Ishka. Excited to see this come out,
Yes.
and excited to keep building with you. Thanks for all your hard work.
Yes, and I hope to see all those changes on the homepage soon.
Soon.
Yeah.
Okay, see you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Stay based.
Yeah.